This is episode number 32 with Cody Jones.
Welcome to the Multiply Your Business podcast, where we bring you inspiring interviews with top entrepreneurs on how they generated more leads, closed more sales, made more money, developed the mindset they needed to be successful, and how they built the business and lifestyle they always dreamed of. We'll teach you how to do this too. Broadcasting from the Black Card Book Studio, here is your host, Scott Morrison.
Welcome into episode number 32. I'm your host, Scott Morrison, and this week I am out visiting with one of our partners, ClickFunnels, at their event Funnel Hacking Live in Dallas, Texas. Really an incredible event. They're hosting this every year. I'm amazed how many people are always at this thing. It keeps growing like nuts, so I encourage you for next year's event to check it out and check out their software as well. It's an incredible tool and resource. But before I left, I had an opportunity to sit down and interview really one of my closest friends, especially in the business world, Cody Jones. Now, Cody is the director of business development for a company called Zapier. If you don't know who Zapier is, you should probably get familiar with them. What they do is they take, I think it's 700 or 800 different apps that are out there and connect them together. So if you're using Gmail and Google Calendar, and you have a CRM software and an email provider and e-commerce, and you're using, Dropbox for your files, and then you're also using Evernote for your notes, or however you have it all set up, Zapier has these Zaps, as they call them, which connects the different software applications together, makes them talk to each other. It's a totally cool software. Check out the show notes, multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/032. We'll have a link for you to check out Zapier. But I brought Cody on because he and I do essentially the same type of work, but in different fields. We both run business development for the organizations we work with. He's a true professional at this, and I wanted to bring him on to understand more of his perspective of business development, but also for the two of us to talk about how you, the small business owner and entrepreneur, how you should be doing strategic partnerships in your business as well. So we talk about how to approach strategic partnerships, how to determine if you should partner with a particular company, how to set up and structure it, and how to continue to fulfill and maintain a good relationship. Now, Cody's done massive deals with companies like Google and Facebook and these huge corporations on this big scale, and then a ton on smaller scales as well with experts and gurus and consultants and so forth throughout his career. So what he shares with you will work regardless of the size of your business. If it's just you and you're a solopreneur, you should be looking at using strategic partnerships because it's a great way to leverage your time and your marketing budget so you can grow your business. And the principles we talk about today will help you with that. Conversely, if you're a bigger company, you're at that 10, 20, 30 plus $1 million mark, you're probably using strategic partnerships already. But on this podcast, we will talk more about how you can use those more effectively, how to take care of the relationship that you've already started, how to find more partners to be working with, and really unpack a lot of that. On top of that, we talk for a little bit at the end as well about working from home. Now, Cody and I both work from home. He's new to this. He's only been doing it for about a year. I've been doing it for much longer than that. I know many of you are working from home, so we give some tips, also a great book and a resource on how to make it work. So I enjoy this one. As I said, Cody's a good friend, close enough that when he's in town here in Orlando with his family, they stay at my house. So that type of good friendship, we had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you enjoy it. So check it out, this episode with the Director of Business Development from Zapier, Cody Jones. Welcome in again to another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm really excited and feel very privileged. I have my good friend Cody Jones on the line today. Cody, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Well, thanks for joining me. And it wasn't hard to talk you into it. We've known each other for years, and I said, "Hey, you're coming on." You're like, "Okay."
It was that easy.
Pretty much. But no, I'm excited because you and I work in similar circles, specifically business development. We go out and do partnerships and relationships and so forth with businesses. And you have a ton of knowledge and ton of experience. And I'd like to kind of unwrap that a little bit and share with the audience kind of what you do, how business development works, and specifically how they can do the same in their business as well.
Well, that'd be great. Yeah, I think it's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of mysticism around what is business development, right? And I think it'd be good to kind of crack that open today a little bit more.
Sure. Well, let's start with that. How would you define what business development is? What does that really mean when you tell somebody I do business development?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're in the tech industry. It's very confusing. So I'll start with that. So business development. So I work for a company called Zapier. We are the easiest way to automate your work, basically. But in the tech industry, business development can mean one of many things. Sometimes it means somebody generating leads on the phone, cold calling people, and kind of a junior sales rep. You've got business development that also means strategic partnerships. So working with key partners to figure out new channels and ways to mutually benefit each other. You've got business development that, it can mean a number of things. I think from my perspective, where I really like to focus is more the strategic side. How do you grow through partners and partnerships at scale instead of a hand-to-hand combat? How do you fish with nets, basically?
Yeah, and you've made a total career of that, essentially going out and finding partnerships. Now with Zapier today, you work with Fusionsoft for a long time and, other tech companies. So I guess first, what's the benefit of doing that? Companies are already spending tons of money on marketing. What's the point then of having this other guy or this other team trying to do strategic partnerships that's ultimately doing the same thing in marketing is, which is bringing new people in and bringing new customers in? What's the point of it?
Yeah, I think the difference is, I think Zapier for me has really opened my eyes in this respect, because Zapier does zero paid marketing. We do a lot of content and we grow uniquely through partners.
Wow.
And so for me, we've got about 1.5 million customers right now. And literally I don't think that we've ever done any zero pay, or I don't think we've done any marketing that we've paid for other than, maybe some testing of some Twitter ads or something like that. And so I think from our perspective, partnerships are kind of the lifeblood of our business. And, why you would hire somebody or work in the business development world or strategic partnerships side of things is to really see how deep you can go. We learned this early on in the business here at Zapier, where key partners that had a large enough user base were just going to be great partners for Zapier.
Sure.
For example, any of the G Suite products, so Google Docs, Sheets, things like that. If we were able to partner tightly with Google, and if they would just even mention us or even tweet about Zapier, it's one of those things that really dramatically we saw a swell of users that would come from something like that. And so you could say that Zapier's marketing and strategic partnerships work very closely through partners, but we found that marketing and coming up with content or evergreen things that we could work with those partners required a really deep relationship with those partners.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And one of the other things that has been really interesting is that as we've invested in partnerships specifically at Zapier, we've noticed that we're able to participate in upcoming product launches and things like that. For example, Google Slides just released an API that allows you to programmatically create slides. It's kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
And we were one of 4 highlighted launch partners that were on the Google blog and things like that. And it was a great way for us to continue growing through partners. Sure. So that's a little bit of the mentality that we have about partnerships from our side.
So what's kind of it sounds like the key that makes that work, if you will, is that you have relationships with these companies. Of course, I think almost any company out there, if Google mentioned them, tweeted about them, said this is a great company, they would get more business because Google is this behemoth out there.
Sure.
But in conversations we've had before, the reason why Google did that for Zapier, the reason why I got to that point is because you guys had a relationship with them already. Am I right along that thinking?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole secret to strategic partnerships is to give your partners more than you receive, period.
Okay. And
that's, I think, the golden rule that you have to stand by in order to make any relationship work, but most especially in business. Mm-hmm. Zapier has a unique offering. I think that this is probably one of the reasons why we uniquely grow through partners, in the fact that I call it the trifecta. One, we allow our partners, so Zapier basically integrates over 800 different tools through one integration. So if you integrate your tool or your product to Zapier, you now connect to about 800 other SaaS tools, which is great, right? The things that allows you to do with your product now is, one, close more sales. Mm-hmm. So when you've got those people that say, hey, I won't buy your product unless you do X, Y, or integrate with X, Y, and Z, you can now say yes. So that's the very first thing that I think that we offer our partners that they're very keen to have. The second one is that we see that users who are using integrations with that tool, their churn rate typically drops by about 50%.
Okay.
So getting them more users, we're helping them retain more users that might otherwise leave because they don't have an automated way to link things together with their favorite tools. And then the third thing is that Zapier has now grown to a certain size that when we talk about our partners, oftentimes we're the bigger marketing list letting people know about this cool new tool or service. So we're actually even generating net new leads for that partnership.
So you're doing promoting for them as well.
Exactly, right? So it becomes kind of the trifecta of helping them close more sales, helping them retain their customers, and even get them new leads. That kind of becomes that, the beautiful silver platter that you can offer to your partners and really build something beneficial and long-term on.
Sure. So for, a lot of our listeners, they're small businesses owners. They have their thing, their business, they're getting going, maybe a handful of employees, or maybe they're just themselves. What are some of the principles you use to form these strategic partnerships that they also could be using to form partnerships in their businesses as well?
Great question. I think it really matters it kind of depends on where your business is at and where you're planning on going. Okay. For example, the stuff that we would do early on with partners has totally changed from what we will do today. And that's mainly because of, how our business has grown. And so I think that early on our to give you an idea, one of the things that we would do is we would build the integrations for the partners. Mm-hmm. That's not something that we do anymore, frankly. So I think, again, it kind of depends on where your size is at, but I think some of the guiding principles are, one, give more than you get. I think that's one thing that we try to stand by. Two, how can you find little ways to just shine sunlight on your partners, right? And we do this in a kind of a fun way. So early on in the days, we would build the integration for that partner and make it available on Zapier. And that was typically enough to get that partner to say, hey, yeah, that's great. We'll talk to our users about it. And then we found early on that we could start doing marketing pieces about that partner and about their tool. Okay. So we would do these things, we call them basically product reviews, where we would write up a nice thing about our partners, about their strengths, never their weaknesses, but always their strengths of what they're really great at, right? So shining a little bit of light on them. Another thing that we've tried to do with our partners is find ways to celebrate their wins and successes. So when we've had technology partners raise new rounds or funds, we'll do a little Slack party on our end, or like a tweet out to kind of celebrate that with them as well.
Very cool.
So I think for us, it really is, our partner success truly is our success. I know a lot of people say that, but for us, literally, as their customer base grows, the usage of Zapier will increase. And so for us, we really do want to do whatever we can to highlight those partners and get them more, just celebrate their growth. That's something that's we're really interested in on our end.
Yeah, and haven't you done in the past, even at other companies you've been with, and with Zapier as well, like newsletters showcasing partners, or like resources page showcasing partners? Have you done things like that as well?
Yeah. So I think that's, whether or not that's beneficial, that's always suspect, right? But, with Zapier, for example, when Company X, you may have never heard of before, does an integration and gets on our platform, we do three things for them. One, we write a blog post unique about that tool, and we publish it. There's about 100,000 subscribers that will get an update about that. Mm-hmm. We send it out in an email to about 600,000 subscribers to let them know that this new tool now integrates with Zapier and all the cool things they can do with it. And then we even mention them in an email that goes out for that month to about 1.5 million users to kind of let them know about that too. Outside of that, we also try to, we've got our app gallery, if you will, where we list these different partners that now integrate with Zapier. We have dedicated landing pages. This is kind of an interesting thing, but when your app joins Zapier, we spin up 800 landing pages. Basically, your service connecting to Google Sheets, your service connecting to Twitter or whatever tool it might be, right?
Right.
But we do find that is something that's really powerful for our partners is the way that we're able to highlight and maybe expose new users to their product.
Sure. So I want to unpack that for a second, because I think there's some resources there that are really good that any business have, because essentially what you just shared is you have assets available within your organization, your email list, your blog, landing pages that already exist. And when you bring on a new partner, you are using those assets to showcase your new partner. And for every business, they have that, right? They have an email list, they have a website, they have whatever it is that they do, their product delivery. And those are all important resources and ways or places that you can showcase your partners. And I think for every business, it's important that they figure out a way to do that. Where can you showcase partners appropriately in front of your customers as well? Because ultimately, that's what partnerships are looking for. Absolutely.
I think from this is really hard for me to do at a previous company. I will say this. We didn't really have a good way to highlight partners to our customers. And frankly, partnerships suffered tremendously because of that. Zapier's a little bit different. It's been built from the ground up to do exactly that, right? And so we've thought intentionally about different ways that we can help our partners, receive that sunlight, right? And so the things that anybody can do, I mean, really anybody, you can absolutely talk about partnerships within a newsletter that are relevant and beneficial to your users. If you don't have a space on your website, create one, whether it's integrations or partnerships or perks. I really was a big fan. If you haven't checked out Moz, Moz.com, they've got I think it's Moz.com/perks or something like that.
MOZ, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. They've got a great, just kind of a bunch of really cool offers for their customers from partners that they know and trust and like.
Yeah.
And I've always found that to be really cool. And I think that you've had some experience with that too, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, even in the consulting world. Guys like, any big podcasts or any big followers, guys like Michael Hyatt or Lewis Howes, oftentimes on their website, Amy Porterfield's another one comes to mind. Mm-hmm. They'll have on their website a resources page. And they'll put on there the resources that they're using, but oftentimes those are also companies that they have strategic partnerships with. Michael Hyatt is an example. He's all about leadership and how you should have your own website. And he partnered with a WordPress company that can create your own WordPress theme or template. And so they put that on their website as an opportunity, to promote both Michael Hyatt and this WordPress thing. And then that's kind of what you're talking about here. Is there's places and ways online or anything that you're doing where we can share what you're doing with a partnership, because that will help both you and the partner grow and succeed. So I love that.
Absolutely. And people, by the way, people like to know what you're using or what you trust and recommend, right? Like you're broadening the circle of trust, right? Your customers know, like, and trust you, and they like to know what other tools you think are great as well.
Sure. To me, that's always been perhaps the most overlooked, but also probably the most powerful part of forming a partnership. I could spend all this money promoting my thing, my widget, and I can spend all this money on Facebook ads to get people to click on a page and go buy it, or have a phone call with me, or whatever it is, the sales process to go buy it. And it's effective. That works. But if a partner goes to their audience and says, hey, I use this widget, I love it, you should go use it too, then it's just as you're saying, there's already that factor of knowing, liking, and trusting the partner who's saying this is a great thing. Well, if they think it is, it must be great. I'm going to go use the same thing. So there's so much power into having the right alliances to help you promote what you're doing.
Absolutely. And frankly, and I guess maybe there's one other thing you should probably touch on, which is like if I could just get Google to say this, right? Like it's the trap of, well, if we could just get this big partner to recommend our product or do a partnership with us or whatever it may be. That's something that I get a lot of, I think that people waste a lot of time on, maybe is the right way to put it. And I've learned a lot about this here at Zapier specifically, but, one of the things that, I guess we spent a lot of time with some specific partners where they had tremendous reach. They're a household brand and they're very well known. They're on everybody's phones, right? Mm-hmm. And we thought, well, if we could just land this partnership, well, surely that would generate X amount of leads and revenue and all that fun stuff. And we spent a lot of time chasing that stuff. And I won't condemn anybody for chasing those, because when they do land, they're great. But just know that it's a ton of work and time to get there.
Yeah.
But what I would recommend is, how can you grow your company through hundreds, if not thousands, of trusted, smaller tribal leaders that can grow your business for you, right?
Sure.
One of the things that we learned early on with Zapier is that, and in Infusionsoft as well, actually, was that there were these people that were out there that people trusted. They may have had a following of only a couple of thousand people, but still that was enough that it mattered, right? That they had this Kool-Aid factor, that what they said mattered to those 1,000 people, whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
And what we did with Zapier, which is really smart, is we built an engine that allows thousands of people to talk about Zapier freely to their users, to their friends, whatever it may be. And we've kind of got this groundswell, which has then, we've got kind of a lot of people talking about Zapier. So we've had a lot of our partners will be embedded within their product, will be in their help documentation. They'll send direct emails to their customer bases. But what was really cool about this is that over time, because there's been such massive, just these users have kind of heard about Zapier from all over the place, they've also started bringing the apps that are maybe not on our platform yet, or the people that aren't in our ecosystem yet. They've started to say, hey, NetSuite, we want to see an integration with Zapier. Why don't you guys get on that? Hey, like we've had a few SAP products recently that are integrating directly to Zapier. I mean, SAP, who's giant, right? Something that we don't have the bandwidth to go do ourselves, but users are pulling those people into our world. And it's kind of amazing that, rather than focusing on a few key big partners, we've kind of taken the opposite approach, and we've enabled a lot of smaller partners to go out into the world and talk about us.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that has created a magnet, right? That's pulled some other bigger opportunities in.
Your partners are bringing in partners.
Exactly.
That's
kind
cool.
of fun.
So how, because I totally agree with you there. Oftentimes you need to don't just go for the big fish, get the smaller ones, get what you can as well. Those are very powerful. What's kind of your process or the way, not just at Zapier, but throughout your career, you have gone out and, formed these relationships, formed these partnerships, and start putting these together? How do you go about doing that? And also, how can somebody who's a small business, how can they do the same thing? Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that are important that I look at first. There's kind of the research phase, right, where you're looking at the different things that you could be doing or the different partners you could be working with. And, I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that I get target market match, right? Know very well who your customers are. Where are they, what are the other products and services that they work or use or contemplate using, right? Who do you not serve, right? Get really clear on who your target market is, and then find the other products and services that are either adjacent to or are complementary of whatever product or service you provide.
Sure. I think there's a lot of power there, because you're good at what you're good at. You don't want to go do everything too. You're not in the business to do something else. So find somebody who is doing that already and partner with them. Exactly. Right.
I mean, this needs to be underscored in every conversation ever, but know where you stop, right? Yeah. Know where your product or service ends, and be okay with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you put together these lists of essentially companies that would be good to partner with, but you're also looking at it from the lens of, these are other products or services that my customers need that I'm not going to provide. Yep, totally. So from there, what happens after that?
Yeah, I think the next step for me that I typically look at is, okay, I'll get on the phone and try to vet out the partners and start to get a feel for who they are, and if there's any interest in doing something together, right? Hopefully they've heard about my company. Right. Maybe they haven't. Maybe I need to educate them on that. But the very next step for me is a culture fit. I know this sounds crazy and maybe a little fluffy, frankly, but I learned this from a guy that I just love and respect at Infusionsoft. His name's Jeff Mask. And basically the premise of it is that if these people don't fit the way that you do business, if they don't see, if their culture and their core values don't align with yours, just don't even waste time pursuing that.
Sure.
And I think for me, that's a painful lesson that I've learned. I don't know if you've run into that, Scott.
No, I absolutely have. I had a partnership that I put together. This is a few years back, and a while, and I won't name any names on it because it's popular brands that most people would know. And after working with them for a while, I realized that just culturally, this is not lined up, and it was painful for a while. And it's funny because we all made some good money off of doing it, but it was like I hated I had to go through that experience. So I'm with you. Vice versa, when you work with a brand who culturally it's a good fit, the people get along, what you're doing is in alignment. Gosh, it's a thing of beauty. It just works so much better and smoother. So I'm totally with you on this.
No, it's almost like, finding your spouse to a certain degree, right? When it works, it just works. And if it's a fight, that's probably something you probably shouldn't pursue long term, because I'll tell you, like you said, yes, they can still be profitable relationships, but if you are getting on that call and it's it's this partner, that's probably going to be a long haul. But yeah, I think that for me, it's okay. Do we fit target market? Are our services complementary? Mm-hmm. Do we have a good culture fit? And assuming all of those things are a go, the next step would be, okay, we have limited bullets, right? We've only got so much time and effort in a day. Stack rank your partners, or potential partners, right? Ask all the questions. How big of a customer base do they have? What kind of marketing commitments are they willing to deliver? Can they send an all-user email, or do they just want to highlight you in one small corner of their newsletter, right? Can they send a dedicated email? Can they do there's also, I'll leave the marketing questions for your imagination, but I think really narrowing down the list of not only who can market, but who's best to partner with based on their availability and the resources is something that I kind of look at next.
No, and it's key. I'll tell you an example. This happened to me last week. I was at an event in Dallas. I met this guy from another company. He described as this CRM software that was growing, and told him about what we're doing with Blackheart Books and how there could be a match there. So we scheduled a call. We got on the phone, and as I asked those questions, turns out it wasn't a CRM software. It was a different type of I don't know the right word for it, but if you have a team of people, contractors out in the street, it's a way to manage them, that type of software. And as we dove into the numbers of how many customers they had, they were brand new. They had like 10 customers. And I'm not belittling that. It just was completely the wrong fit. That if you don't ask those questions, then I could have been in partnership with somebody that I can't help and they can't help me. So you're right. You've got to ask these different things and get some good understanding about what you're really getting into.
No, totally. I think the other thing that's really important is understanding motivation, like what motivates those partners, right? Like what are their goals? What do they see as a win? And how do you really align whatever you're trying to do together with that? Because I found that people are nice. People are generally nice. People generally want to say yes, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But when it comes down to executing, that's where things get a little tricky. One of the things that we do here at Zapier is we really try to understand upcoming product roadmaps for those partners that we're working with. For example, if Dropbox is going to release a new feature that is different enough that we could market and talk about it, and we could tie some really cool functionality to it so that we're part of their launch plan, right? That's something that we want to know, whatever that milestone is.
Right.
And we kind of want to know the red tape that they're going to go through to get there, so that we can kind of tie, whatever marketing activities or promotional plans that we have to a stake in the ground, and then work towards that. Otherwise, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that ties into like a really important piece of this. We've talked about why you should have partnerships, how to go out and find them, but perhaps the most important is how to maintain good relationships. So, and that's the way you did that, I assume, with Dropbox. If you're going to know what's coming up in their product roadmap, you're probably having regular conversations with them, right?
Absolutely. You've got right? We've got an entire team that's reaching out, touching base with these partners, figuring out what's going on, what's important to them, what are some milestones they've got coming up, and hopefully figuring out ways to help and encourage them on that path.
Yeah, for sure. And then also looking for opportunities. Where do we fit into what they're doing? How can we support them? Conversely, how can they support us as well?
And I think that's what makes, when you're helping another partner, it makes the ask for them to help you on something so much easier, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been one of the things that we've tried to do on our end.
How nerdy do you get on that? What I mean by that is, do you track the partner ABC company? I need to have a phone call with them every week, every month, whatever it is, and check it off. And I need to make sure they get a birthday card, and you have a process somewhere.
Right.
Do you track it that in depth, or how do you make sure you're communicating enough with your partners?
I think that's one of the hardest things to know.
Dang it. I hope you're going to have a good answer for me here.
Generally, I'm very systems oriented. That's something I would love to have, is just the perfect follow-up formula for each partner, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what I found. When you work with as many partners as we do, recency and willingness is probably the thing you should follow. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I think it's good to try to keep a cadence. For example, we try to touch base with every one of our partners of a certain caliber within at least quarterly, if not more, right? Mm-hmm. We're sending them automated emails and things like that. So everybody's hearing from us at least monthly about, how their integration's doing on Zapier and stuff like that. We try to reach out personally at least quarterly. But what we found is that trying to inject yourself into a partner's plans never works as well as the smaller partner that's there knocking on your door saying, hey, we've got this really cool thing coming up. Can you work with us to launch it? And we'd love to talk about you to all of our users, sure. Even though they may be smaller, right? And this is something our CEO, Wade, and I have kind of gone back and forth on. I yearn for the perfect follow-up process, whereas in the real world, we've found that it's good to have something like that. And if you can have it automated, absolutely invest time in that. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I mean, a bird in the hand is definitely worth two in the bush when it comes to partnership work. And so work with those people that are coming to you as well and asking and proposing cool ideas that maybe are new and a little different, but maybe worth investing in and figuring out a little bit more. Yeah,
for sure. I think so. And I've tried to put together a process for a partner, a follow-up, stay in touch, regular communication, whatever it may be. In some ways you can, like you're what you're saying about having a regular automated stats email, that's important. That's helpful. Or maybe some sort of partner newsletter or something that goes out. Those are helpful. But when it comes to how often should I communicate with such and such a partner, I find that's almost the art of this is, some guys need a lot of hand holding and some partners, they never want to hear from you. So you gotta figure that out.
Well, you're dead on. I think it truly is. That's the art, right? That's what you're hiring for. You're hiring for people that can read people intelligently, that can tie together their important milestones, what's important to that partner, and make sure that you're there to help them celebrate those wins and maybe even accelerate them.
Yeah. Wow, this is fascinating. I could talk to you forever about partnership stuff. So,
oh, I'm with you. We do it anyway. So
I know it's fun.
To record one of these sessions, right?
Totally. Let me ask you this: same topic, but a little bit different angle of it. Why do you like working in business development? Like, you've made this your career and that's what you want to keep doing. Why strategic partnerships? Why business development? Yeah.
That's a good question. I wish I could ask myself that, right out of college. But I think for me, it's the intersection of, it's kind of that intersection of what could be and what you kind of create with. It's the co-creation really is what it is. And I think that for me, that's the power of strategic partnerships or business development. I love people, period. I love working with people. I love hearing about how they're growing. I love hearing about how they're trying to grow their business to the next level and the challenges that they're encountering. So for me, to be able to talk to people on a daily basis and get paid for it, that's dream number one. But number two, creating something together that is far more powerful than two things separately apart. I think that's where that little bit of magic that kind of comes in. For me, that's exciting, right? Those are the things that, wake you up in the morning, you're excited to go talk to that partner and work on that next level of whatever that is that you're co-creating together. And for me, I think those are the things that drive me and excite me about business development in general. I mean, what about you though, Scott? I mean, here you are hosting this podcast, reaching out to strangers every day. I mean, what about you?
It's pretty much the same thing you just said. When I was at Infusionsoft and other jobs I had before then, often I found myself in a sales role on the phone closing deals, and I was good at that, but I never loved it. I always looked at, I got this person on the phone, and, whether they buy or not, that's going to be the end of our relationship. Even though to get to the point for them to make a buying decision, I've had to ask them lots of questions about their business and their goals and where they want to go. And every time I would do that, I would have other ideas of like, well, they should be trying this and they should be working on that. And there's other things that they could be doing. And when I started doing a lot of work in business development, I realized that was the perfect intersection for me to be able to create, as you're saying, work with somebody and understand what are their goals and their needs and they're trying to accomplish, and create a plan to do that, and work with somebody else on doing that, and bring in the social aspect of it, which I like, and working with people. So it just was the perfect intersection, which was funny because it took me years and years and years to understand that. And that was something I struggled with a lot, especially early on in my career, is, what's my purpose? What am I here for? What am I supposed to do? And it never fit when I just said, well, I'm going to be a salesman. But as I started understanding more business development, my purpose in life now is to connect people to opportunities where they could be successful. And that happens a ton in business development. But if you were to ask me, I had somebody the other day ask me my favorite Mexican restaurant in San Diego, and I had an answer, and it was like the highlight of my day because the guy wanted a burrito and I hooked him up,
There it is.
As funny as that sounds, that's a lot of what my passion is, what drives me. And so I always kind of assume that with you as a similar type of thing. So I like to understand that as well. So that's cool.
Oh, you bet. For me, it's to attend conferences years after years and see, friends and partners that are now friends, I should say, that may even be at different companies. I mean, you're giving each other hugs and high fives. And I mean, it's just, I think for me, to your point, continuing that relationship beyond just a sale or just one deal, whatever that is, right? I think that's the beauty of strategic alliances like this.
Which was funny. I'll tell you an example that I had a call the other day with somebody who I recognized the name. I didn't know where I recognized it from, and we're talking about something, and after a while we figured out I sold them software at Infusionsoft. And neither of us really remembered that, other than finally we're like, oh, that's right, I was their salesman, which meant I probably spent a couple hours on the phone with that person, explaining it, demoing it, walking it through and all that stuff like that, and finally got a closed sale out of it. But there was no ongoing relationship or connection there. Whereas you're saying, you're right, you go to these events. I have a number of events I'm coming up to over the next few months, and I am most excited to go see my friends there who happen to be business partners and people we've done deals with and work with. But it's about having that relationship and understanding their needs, what they're looking for, and how I can help them get there. And they do the same thing for me. So it's much more about a bigger picture, which personally I love.
No, I'm with you. It's great. I mean, that is the beauty of this profession, right? And,
totally.
It's for me, I feel like, it's a daydream every day, getting to do what I get to do, working with the partners that I get to work with, and to call it work.
Totally right.
It's a lot of fun.
Totally. Well, I appreciate all the insight in that. I'm going to wrap it up here, but real quick, I did want to ask you a little about another topic, if we could, real quick.
Oh, sure.
We just did an episode 29 on the podcast, talking about being successful and working from home. You now work from home for about a year, and this is kind of new to you.
That's right.
I remember early on having a lot of conversations with you about, how you can make it work. But I'd love to hear and have you share kind of your experience of how you've made it work to work from home, even though your whole career used to be working in an office.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It really is. So I read this book called Remote by Jason Fried. The guy's the founder of Basecamp and 37 Signals, the different tools that they've used or created over the, right. I just recently reread it, and it made so much more sense now that I'm actually remote. So there's a few things that remote is it's in its own kind of. I mean, there are definitely pros and cons, and in my opinion, pros far outweigh the cons. But there are definitely some cons, especially if you're an extrovert, right? There's not a water cooler. There's not there's not your buddy across the way that you can go high five and talk to and say hello to, right?
Yeah, it's harder to get people to go to lunch with you.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to actually plan lunch meetings if you're going to do that, right? And drive across town to make that happen. But here's what is interesting. I will say this: working from home, the remote lifestyle. I mean, it's taken me a year to finally remove, like, I don't want to call them the scales from my eyes, but the corporate kind of you have to be chained down to one place. Mm-hmm. But the beauty is, so a few months back, we went up to the cabin, and I didn't take any time off from work because, one, I had internet access, and mm-hmm. two, I was able to get up early before my kids were awake and crank through half my day, and then stay up later that night and crank through the other half of my day. Right. And it was just amazing, right? To think about that and not stress or worry about being away from the office. We did New Year's in Mexico as a family with 2 babies and another on the way. I don't recommend that, by the way. It's a lot of work. It's not a vacation. But the remote has afforded that ability, and it was really just nice to make that happen.
What tips do you have for people who are trying to make it work, working from home?
Yeah, so the hardest thing for me has been adjusting and creating boundaries for myself. Because when you work remote or from home, it's kind of like, well, this is just my house, and the fridge is 14 steps away from me, and my bedroom's another 25, and whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I try to do, and sometimes my team laughs at me for this, but I actually get dressed up in the morning. I even put on a dress shirt. I may be wearing basketball shorts underneath it, but I at least put on a dress shirt because it signifies to both my family and me that I'm getting work done. I think that's one of the things that remote talks a little bit about, is kind of creating that space, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing is, I'm learning now, I need to take breaks, because remote is one of those things that can quickly creep into every nook and cranny of your life. When work is as little as opening up your laptop or checking your phone, next thing you know, an hour's gone, and you've, somehow worked another hour that day, right?
Yeah, very easily.
So I have, frankly, I've got my Slack. It goes to sleep after a certain hour, and I don't care if the world's on fire. I'm not going to see that message.
That's smart.
The other thing I'm making time for is just during the day trying to get out and take a walk and get some vitamin D. I found myself going a couple of weeks without really being outside much. So that was something that I'm trying to implement myself. I will say, though, that by no means do I have remote work figured out. I think I'm a newbie to it, but I am definitely sold on the lifestyle.
But you're making it work.
We're figuring it out, making it work. I will say that the next house I buy will have a totally separate, physically alone standing office. No more of this,
I'm so with you
in the house
there.
Office.
I'm totally with you there. I work from home. My wife does as well. We have kids in and out, and I think so many times, like, gosh, it'd be nice to have my own office here on my property. A little more space.
You. I would ask you though. Scott, you've been at this a little bit longer than I have. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's your biggest aha or tip from working from home here?
Well, you touched on them. The biggest things for me, my 3 biggest things. One is still some discipline. Have a routine. Go to work at the same time. Be done at the same time as best as you can. Right. The next is boundaries. Have a dedicated workspace. Have an office where the door closes, where you don't really see what else is going on in the house or around you. And then, like a little trick that I sometimes am great at, most times I suck at, is leave my phone in my office when I leave for go make dinner or whatever it may be. Leave the phone there, because if not, it's too easy to pick it up, and before you know it, you're sitting in front of your laptop doing something again. And then take time for yourself. I loved going to lunch with my wife. Another guy I used to follow a bunch. He worked from home. He would set rewards for himself that if he got certain things accomplished by noon on Friday, he'd go see a movie on Friday afternoon. And he's like, it was just like I felt so rebellious sitting in the movie theater at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. But he's like, but I had tons of work done that week. Sorry. So just finding ways to reward yourself. I like what you said, getting out, taking a walk. I try to go run in the middle of the day as best as I can, just to do something, just to get out. And I don't know if that works. I will say though, if it's this isn't for everyone. If remote lifestyle may not work, and so if you're not in an environment where you can go to the office every day, maybe find a shared office or have 2 or 3 people that to work from home to meet somewhere and do something to make sure that you're accountable and you're working and moving forward.
I love that. I specifically finding the reward for yourself. I think that's kind of fun.
It's fun.
I'd love to have an excuse to tell my wife, you know what, I'm going to the movies today because I had a kick butt week.
Yeah, exactly. But then most of the time, the disadvantage when you have wife and little kids home, they're like, oh, well, we want to go too. You're like, I love you guys, but like, I wanted my own little thing here, and you got to have that conversation. So I'll let you figure that part out.
Well, I might have to follow up part 2 on how to reward yourself if you work from home. But no, that's great, man.
Yeah, it works. Well,
thanks for having me on here, though, Scott.
Cody.
This has been awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for all your insight. What are some ways people can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best for me. I'm on there. Just find me, Cody Jones at Zapier, or Twitter at Cody J Jones. And then, if you have any questions, feel free to ping me. Happy to help anybody else figuring out this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll link that up in the show notes. It's multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/032 for episode 32. So we'll link that all up. Cody, I sincerely appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight today. Thanks a lot, bud.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It was a blast.
So there you go. I hope you got a ton out of this episode with Cody Jones. As you can see, well, first, we're both pretty passionate about business development, but doing that in strategic partnerships in your business is something that will work for every business, regardless of the size. So if you haven't started building strategic partnerships, start working on it now. If you have some already, take what you learned today and apply it and make those even better. And as Cody said, don't always be looking for the big whales. What other smaller partnerships could you be building? Because there's a ton of them out there. And by the way, other companies, they want to partner with you too. They want to be working with you. So here's the next steps and things you need to do. First, check out Zapier. If you check out our show notes, multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/032, we have a link for you to go look at Zapier. It's a really cool resource. Next, start working on your strategic partnerships. Make a list of the companies and the people that you want to be partnering with. If you want some more in-depth instructions and a worksheet on how to do this, we did episode 4 of your Dream 100 Partners, multiplierbusinesspodcast.com/004. Check that out. And then finally, please share this episode with other people. Share with other business owners. Share with somebody else who could really be using strategic partnerships in their business, and it'll help them grow and it'll help them take them to the next level. Be the cause for change and be the person who's going to help them grow their business. So I hope you enjoy this. This is a topic I love. We're going to talk about it some more. If there's things you would like to learn about or things that you can use some help with, let us know. Go to the website at multiplierbusinesspodcast.com, click on Contact Us, or even go through the Facebook page and let me know there. Facebook.com/multiplierbusiness. That's what we have for you today. I hope you enjoy this. I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.